Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Workology. Right now, we're all looking for ideas to help our teams who are suddenly dispersed and working from home due to coronavirus. How do we train employees who have never worked remotely? How do we ensure that they have the resources they need to do their jobs from home? How can we help them be productive? If this is the future of work, how do we as HR leaders support a remote workforce? These are probably questions that you have asked yourself in the weeks past and will continue to ask in the weeks as we move forward. Today, we're talking to Charlotte Lockhart. She's a business advocate, investor, and philanthropist with more than 25 years experience in multiple industries. She is the CEO of 4 Day Week Global, and their campaign works to promote internationally the benefits of productivity, focused, and reduced hour workplaces. Charlotte, welcome to the Workology Podcast.
Oh, lovely to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in remote work or reduced hours in like productivity areas?
So we ran a 4-day week trial in our business in New Zealand back in 2018. And the question we were trying to answer is, what is productivity in our business? And if we can improve productivity or identify it, improve it, can we then reward the staff with additional time off? And so we ran a trial for 2 months. It was incredibly successful, and we made it a permanent way of working in our business back in 2018. And so we have been trucking along with that since then. And then, of course, as we traveled the world and were talking to various people about this, it became clear that this was a conversation that everyone is trying to have. There's this whole idea of what is the future of work going to look like for us all, and how do we create that flexible and remote working space. And this is all pre-COVID, and now of course we're all working remotely and flexibly, and so it's a very interesting time to be part of this conversation.
As we adjust to the new normals of work, as you were talking about, do you think is the first thing that HR leaders should focus on when preparing their workforce to a more permanent work from home shift?
Well, I think first and foremost, and this is probably what a lot of what good people and capability managers are doing, is to make sure that they're checking the pulse of their staff as they're going through. So here in New Zealand, we have effectively returned to work as of this week. But the HR and people and capability managers have been checking in with their staff around who wants to return to a full-time office position or work, and who would still like to have either full remote and flexible working or a combination of that. And the general amount of people in any organization seems to be about 70% of people want to keep the either full or combined version of what we have now. But making sure that our people are safe in that, because not everybody can work remotely, not everybody can work flexibly, but whether that's a combination of their mental health space or their ability to actually set themselves up in their living arrangement, or just that there are just some people that just like coming to work all of the time. And so there'll be a bit of juggling and how we work that through, so that you've got some people in the team who are not in the office and some who aren't. But making sure that you're constantly listening to your people and checking the pulse.
I like that. What are you seeing from companies that are handling this and doing it well? How does it look for them?
The companies that are doing it really well are the ones who sent people home with all of the right resources. So they've said, take whatever equipment you need from work. If you need to take a chair, because of course the whole ergonomics is quite important. You don't want to send people home and then have your entire workforce with back issues at a later stage. So they've said, take whatever equipment you need from the office back to your house. And then they've also provided financial contributions for those who need it, if they needed to buy a printer or they need help with their internet access. And so therefore, the companies that have done that bit really easily, they're all that's sunk costs. It's already spent, it's already done. Having their teams work remotely from here on in is actually quite economically viable and a really good economic decision. So one of the companies that I was speaking to, it's a large insurance company here in New Zealand, and they have a number of floors in arguably our most expensive building in Auckland, and they're looking at being able to reduce that floor footprint by half. So if you think about the economic benefits to a company of actually not hyper and micromanaging your staff by having them all come in, then there is true benefit for that. I was speaking to one of the CEOs of one of the large photocopying companies here, and their business has gone down by 80% because nobody's in the office using the photocopier. And so it's actually, when you look at what some of these costs are, now that's obviously sad for the photocopying business, and and we obviously as kind individuals need to understand that their business model is suffering and they're going to need to reinvent themselves a wee bit. But if you look at it from a business perspective, these are all costs that we can start reducing and making our businesses more productive, because we've got more productive staff who are able to work from home, and we're able to reduce our costs enormously. So that's, I think, really important.
I think that's important to consider, and I like that you're suggesting ergonomics, because it's not one that I'm hearing a lot about. I'm hearing about Zoom fatigue and different situations, or employees having to be on 8 hour or more long Zoom calls throughout the day.
I know, what's going on with that?
I mean, do you think that helps productivity at all? I mean, to me, it just feels like Big Brother's watching.
Well, and how productive is the supervisor trying to get their work done by then they're busy trying to keep an eye on everybody else? And if you think about it, those people are probably not watching their teams in that micromanaging way when they're in the office. So why would you swap that behavior over to a remote working scenario? But this is exactly the point. The whole 7 to 8 hour Zoom call is because businesses haven't had a conversation around what is productivity, what does that look like in our business. So if I can't measure that, if I don't know what it is and I can't measure it, then I can't trust you to get on with it. And if I can't trust you to get on with it, then I'm going to pop you on an 8 hour Zoom call. But actually, if we look at it, we've all been sent home, and I would be fascinated to know, and anyone is welcome to email me or you, Jessica. I'd really love to know from the people who certainly started this out on the 8 hour Zoom call, whether that 8 hour Zoom call is something that they are still doing. Because I think over time, I think some of those habits surely must ease, because people go, actually, I don't need to be watching you the whole time. Different if you're in some sort of collaborative team, everybody's contributing into something, but those are quite unusual workplaces. Most of us can get on with most of our work without having to feel like we're in an 8 hour Zoom call.
8 hour Zoom call feels like the name of a new book on
it does
toxic culture.
Absolutely. And I think this is the interesting thing, and it was, so this same insurance company that I mentioned before, interestingly, we have an organization here called the EMA, which is the Employee and Manufacturers Association. And it's basically an organization that supports businesses with great resources and work habits. And they are running some seminars on how to manage remotely in this new space. What does remote management look like, and making that safe for their managers and giving their managers skills. And if we think about it in terms of a journey that someone goes through, from being a sort of a worker bee through team leadership, through to sort of junior and middle management, through to up into actual leadership. And along the way, you are developing your leadership skills. And so what this person had observed was that it's actually at the team leader, that early journey in your management career, that is the team leaders that were struggling with it, because of course they haven't had time to develop those areas of their management skills. And so I think that's something as business owners we should always be very cognizant of, is what are the skills that our managers need to develop so that we're setting them up to succeed. Because it's very easy when we get through all of this to just go back to same old, because that was how we used to do it and I know how to manage that. But if we stretch our managers, they become much better leaders, and that's better for our businesses. And so I would recommend anybody, look out for whatever resources are available in your business community around how you develop your leadership skills. And the great thing about this, of course, is that in days gone by, i.e. pre-COVID, which is only months gone by, if you were developing somebody's leadership skills, it was generally quite an expensive process. It might include university or time away from the office or various things, or requiring somebody to do a whole pile of work over their weekends. But now we can do it all remotely. We can do it all on a webinar and a Zoom call. There's incredible amounts of efficiencies that can go into how we upskill. Just listening to your podcast and getting information around what other people are thinking and what's happening elsewhere in the world. All of these things we've swapped over into this whole, just going to do that remotely. And so how can we learn remotely? I think it's a really important aspect for businesses to be looking at.
I'm so glad you're talking about this, because I do think that now our managers and employees too are being thrust into this very different world, and the old way of leading is not working. And also added on to that is all this new technology that maybe they weren't familiar with or comfortable with in the beginning. And so now they're being thrown into the fire, so to speak, and expected to magically have these really great, productive and effective teams. Not to mention all the personal stress that's going on with kids being home and, family members being sick, and then, it's a very scary time.
And the underlying fear. I mean, there is the COVID. See, in New Zealand, we have very little of this, but there is this underlying fear in a lot of the community around what it actually is and the unknown. So managing our people and their own ability to self-soothe through this process, I think, has become really, really important. And I think it's infinitely ironic that, of course, we've been, the parents of this world have been going, give me flexible and remote working. And then suddenly, in the last couple of months, we gave it to them, but we also gave them the children at home. And not only did we give them the children at home, which is nice, I want to spend more time with my children, we gave them the children at home, and you have to homeschool them. And so the poor parents have been given the thing that they truly want, but then also all of the disruption that goes with it. So it will be, here in New Zealand, our children go back to school on Monday. And I think that this will be a really exciting opportunity for the parents to be able to then, get all the benefits of this flexible and remote working. And isn't that the point? Isn't this a really exciting time to reimagine how our workplace is, not just for our people, but for its productivity and its profitability, and look for all of the new things we can do.
I like your optimism, because I don't think that enough people are looking at the good things that come out of this shift. Certainly employees are wanting to work more from home. I am hopeful that we will be able to be more productive and more flexible, and there'll be more trust, because it worked, during one of the hardest times in the history of humankind. People were able to get things done and do it from home. I know companies are starting to think that way. Twitter just announced that a good number of their employees will be working home forever, which I'm looking forward to seeing more companies make those announcements here in the coming days and weeks.
Well, and they're doing it because it makes economic sense for them to do this, right? So once you've established that people can work from home, then that's actually cheaper for you. And then, of course, there's the environmental benefits, there's the infrastructure benefits for our cities. You need less roads and public transport if you're actually spending less time getting to and fro from work. The mental health aspects of not having all of that commuter time, not feeling like your life is just one big rush. We get much more gender balance in the workplace because men are working at home just as much as women are working at home. The flexible working suits us both for those reasons. Gives our men folk an opportunity to be more involved with care duties. In Ireland, 98% of care duties are actually done by women, which is really interesting. And so, the way we reframe this and reimagine it really gives us a chance to shape a future for us, not just in the workplace, but as a society.
I agree with you. And I do feel like, of course, my partner and I, we kind of have more of a shared parenting relationship. I mean, he's a great cook and we share the load with raising my daughter. But I am hearing from others that because people are at home, there's no travel, the relationships are better in terms of with your children, you're more involved, but both parents can be a part of the daily life of your children.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, so we have, so Andrew has his children up in the UK. We're obviously here in New Zealand. And so he's been able to spend a few hours at the end, what is the end of our day, but the beginning of the children's school day, actually being involved in their schooling, which he's never really had otherwise, apart from the times when we were up in the UK. But actually being physically involved in the history class and the mathematics bit, which of course he's struggling with, and the opportunities for us to be involved with things in a different way. We need to be looking at those opportunities. That is not to discount the fact that there are some serious issues for people, and there are businesses collapsing, and there are people who are on the poverty line. I mean, I just the news on the one of the on the BBC today said that 1 in 4 Americans are on the benefit now and are on support, and so that's phenomenally large number of people. And so we have to be mindful of the and sensitive to that the fear that presents for people. And I think that as business leaders and business owners, it's really important for us to really be looking for the reimagining, because we have a responsibility to keep our businesses going. We have a responsibility to keep our people in employment, and we have a responsibility to a pathway that enables a recovery as quickly as possible. And so using our imaginations at this time is more important than ever.
Let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you are listening to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Workology. Today, we're talking with Charlotte Lockhart about helping remote teams be more productive. Are you studying for your HRCI or SHRM exams? Join our free HR Certification Study Group on Facebook. Search for HR Certification Study Group or go to hrcertificationstudygroup.com. Ace your HR exams with the HR Certification Study Group.
Let's step back a bit and talk a little bit about your organization. What's the primary focus of the 4-day week, and what's the kind of work that you guys do right now?
Well, so previously we had spent quite a lot of time traveling the world talking to businesses about 4-day week and presenting at universities and the like, talking to government agencies. And now, of course, we're doing a lot of that by Zoom or the equivalent. And so what we're doing a lot of at the moment is having this conversation around what is productivity and what it is moving forward. So we are hosting a seminar, a webinar in New Zealand next week to look at what is the New Zealand solution, because solving your issue around productivity, which is at the core of why, where we started with the 4-day week journey, is if we can fix productivity, we can all work less hours. And so the conversation just becomes now, if I can improve my productivity in my business, it's not so much about whether I can let my staff work less, it's actually I can just keep my business alive. And if I can keep my business alive, I can keep paying my people. And if I can keep paying my people, then we have a different society. And we're finding here in New Zealand, and I know it's happening in the States because it comes up in the news a lot, There's a lot of companies that are dropping down to 4 days a week and paying their staff for 4 days. Now, when we talk about reduced hour work week, we're not talking about reduced pay at the premise of what we're doing, but we understand that in this time, that may just not be possible for businesses. Reducing pay, they're reducing hours because they need to reduce pay. And so for us, a lot of the conversation we're having now with businesses is, okay, well, if you're going to do that, what's your pathway to going back up to full pay? What measurements and what metrics within a business need to happen that will mean that that's an indicator that people can go back up to full pay? And communicating that really well with your staff and saying, look, this is the problem, this is the temporary solution, but this is what the pathway out of it looks like. And challenging them to be part of that exit strategy, because they're the ones that are benefit the most. If we can get the business to this point, we will be able to go up to full pay. And so therefore you're remembering, and this is one of the things I think that made it such a success in our business here in New Zealand, that we started the 4-day week. We made it a pact between ourselves and the staff. Andrew said, I'm going to create a pact with you. If we can be more productive, I will give you more time. And so it's recognizing that businesses need their workforce and the workforce needs the business. We just don't exist without each other.
I think these are all important points. And so this is so many good nuggets in this podcast interview with you. We've got pulse checks, we've got communication, we've got manager support, and then this sort of laying out of expectations with a promise. Like if the productivity is there or the sales are there, you're going to be able to get more time back. I mean, who wouldn't want to look for a more productive solution if it meant you got an extra 4 hours off to do what you want and keep your same pay?
Well, this is it. And what we did with our staff, and this is what we recommend when people are looking at this solution, is to make it a bottom up process. So everyone's involved with finding what productivity is and what are the solutions around increasing it. And so therefore, so if you say, you talk about increasing sales, and that generally falls on the sales force, but actually what if everybody else that sits in the other departments are going, oh, actually, I saw this opportunity over here, or what if we tweak the product here, or what if we provided this back end support for you that allowed you to do more of that? And so therefore, when you treat the business as a whole, everybody in that business has a job that allows everyone else to do their job. And so it's that collaborative feel. And so when we went through this process, and people will be able to see from the 4-day week book and also from the information that's on our website, our team engagement scores went through the roof, because we gave them this ultimate problem that they were ultimately responsible for the solution. And it was fantastic. Everybody so enjoyed being part of it. We set up a part of our intranet so that people could share ideas. And so, you might see an idea come out of one department and go, actually, you know what, we could do that in our department too. Or if we iterated it like this, it would apply for us. And so it's those individualized solutions that allow people to work through what is their individual responsibility to the overall goal, and what their team's responsibilities are, and how they can all contribute to each other.
This is great. I think if everybody really sat down and thought about what they want most is more of a work-life balance, like the majority of the population. And so they get this opportunity, but they also are involved in helping the organization. They're responsible for building that organization and meeting those goals. And then the end benefit is, hey, you're only going to work 4 days. And
you do it as a team. I mean, I had this rather interesting conversation with a young gentleman from a law firm, and he was like, it will never work in law. And I'm kind of like, yeah, except that there are law firms doing it. But I said to him, so how many are there of you? He said 350 across 3 offices. And I said, okay, so you saying to me that all 350 of you, who all presumably have degrees, you're saying that if you all got together, you couldn't find a way with all of your cleverness of making this work. And when it was framed like that, he went, oh, I see what you mean. So this is about the collective, and it's about communication and finding the solution together. And businesses often forget that. We have, you mentioned before the fear and trust issue around leaders being able to keep people off an 8-hour Zoom call. But that's at the heart of the issue, is that leaders generally get, particularly to the C-suite, because they can make decisions and they've got some problem-solving skills and they can create solutions and things. But this is actually something that you need to let your people solve. You need to let them lead, and you have to trust your leadership to get on with them. It's a bit like parenting. Every now and then you've got to let your child learn to do something by falling off the bike themselves. You can't always make all their decisions. Otherwise you just end up with a 30-year-old child living at home.
I don't think any parent really wants that complete. That's not your ultimate goal.
It's not your ultimate goal. And so giving your staff, you hire your people because you trust them enough to get a job done. That's why you hired them, as opposed to someone else. We're already making a decision about some level of trust because we gave them the employment contract in the first place. So if you're not going to trust your decision to hire a person or a team of people into roles, then actually what are we saying about our own ability to make decisions?
Well, Charlotte, this has been a fantastic conversation. I wanted to ask, because I think a lot of people are going to be listening to this and say, I want to learn more about the work that Charlotte's doing. So where can people go to learn more about you and the book and all the research and your traveling or your Zoom call schedule if they wanted to learn more about it?
So we have a website, which is 4dayweek.com, which is the number 4, dayweek.com. We also, so the book is called The 4-Day Week. It's written by Andrew Barnes, and that's available on Amazon. I don't know whether Amazon are delivering actual physical books at the moment, but there is Audible and the digital version, so you can get the book digitally. And so the book talks about the whole journey that we went on with what we were doing, and then some of the observations that we've seen. We keep as much information on the 4-Day Week website as possible. Please don't message me to say the 4-Day Week website is dreadful. I know that. It's kind of growing organically as to this new thing, and we have a new website that is being built at the moment. So that will come right. But if you persist with it, there's lots of information on there. There's research and there's legal opinions, and there's just all sorts of really interesting things. If you dive on, and you might find you there for several hours.
Well, we will link to the book, and we'll link to the website for the 4-Day Work Week. And they are delivering books in the United States. I just ordered 2 earlier this week, and they arrived shortly. So I'm trying to get my reading up. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Thank you so much.
Lovely. No, thank you very much, Jessica.
We are making a significant shift in how we work in this newly remote workplace. And it's challenging to make these experiences as seamless as possible for our dispersed and remote staff. We want them to be engaged, productive, happy, doing the work, and supporting and serving their families. Remote work has become a vital part of a company's operations, and I think it's here to stay. Sorry, Sherm, I think it's here to stay. I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk to Charlotte and get advice from her as an expert on workplace productivity. One thing I wanted to leave you with, and this just came through my email, Udemy reported, they're an online course distribution platform. They reported that online course enrollment has surged by 425% amid lockdowns. The way we engaged and learned and worked together, I don't care what anybody says. They are wrong if they think it's not changing. It is changing, and it is going to transform our business. How we plan and prepare for that is up to us. Thank you for joining the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Workology. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader in HR and leadership who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller Merrill. Until next time, you can visit workology.com to listen to all our previous podcast episodes.